It wasn't valuable. It didn't sparkle. But it sang, not out loud, but inside her memory. The old music box sat crooked on a dusty shelf, its velvet lining faded, the ballerina long snapped off her stand. But Zella Mae couldn't throw it away. Not because of what it was, but because of what it remembered. When she was 19, that box played a song during her first heartbreak. At 37, it soothed her colicky son during midnight feedings. At 52, she almost gave it away during spring cleaning, until it chimed once, on its own, as if reminding her. I'm still part of you. You see, this isn't just clutter. It's living history. A quiet witness to a woman's ever-changing life. And that's how this story begins, not with trash bags or to-do lists, but with one haunting question. How do you let go of something that still knows your name? Because for many seniors, the challenge isn't sorting items, it's sorting selves. Who you were. Who you loved. Who you lost. So Zella Mae made a decision. If an object still whispers, she listens. She doesn't toss it, she finds a way to honor it, without letting it trap her. And now it's your turn. What's the oldest thing in your home that still speaks to your soul? Tell us below, your story might just help someone else feel less alone. Zella Mae's house didn't speak in words. It remembered. The floors creaked in places no one had walked in years, like they were sighing from holding so much unspoken history. The air was thick, not with dust, but with stories. Boxes teetered like quiet towers in every corner, some labeled, some not. Drawers stuck from years of disuse, holding birthday cards with glitter long faded, grocery lists from decades past, and photos with names written on the back in shaky cursive. Nothing was thrown out, because nothing felt forgotten. You might walk in and see mess. Zella Mae walked in and saw evidence. Of joy. Of heartbreak. Of trying. Of surviving. There was a coat she hadn't worn since Reagan was president, still hanging like it was waiting for one more walk through autumn leaves. A chipped mug from her first job teaching second grade. 5 strands of tangled Christmas lights that hadn't worked since her grandson was little. To someone else, they're just things. To her, they're versions of herself, pressed between the pages of time. The 24-year-old who once baked pies barefoot in a red-tiled kitchen. The 41-year-old who cried through a divorce with one hand on a Bible and the other on a bottle of ginger ale. The 63-year-old who held her sister's hand as she took her last breath. Clutter? No. It was proof she showed up to every chapter. And for many older adults, that's what a home becomes, a living scrapbook. A place where objects carry the emotional weight no one else sees. But here's the truth Zella Mae slowly began to accept. You don't need to keep everything to honor your story. The house may remember all of you. But you get to choose which parts still serve who you are now. Not out of guilt. Not out of fear. But out of gentle respect for how far you've come. So here's a question only you can answer. What in your home is holding you in the past, and what might be ready to help you step forward? Let us know in the comments, because someone else may need the courage you already have. It started on a gray afternoon, the kind that makes everything feel heavier than it is. The rain tapped softly on the windows as Zella Mae walked from room to room, her fingers brushing shelves, drawers, and corners that hadn't seen light in years. And then, she stopped. For the first time, she really looked. Not at the objects. But at herself, reflected in what she'd been holding on to. Stacks of cookbooks she no longer used. Dozens of greeting cards from people who had long since passed. A stack of unopened holiday candles, bought on sale with good intentions. All of it meant something once. But now? It didn't just take up space. It told a story she wasn't sure she wanted to keep telling. In the stillness, she whispered, more to herself than anyone. I saved everything, but forgot to save myself. Because sometimes, clutter isn't just physical. It's emotional sediment, layered over the years by guilt, grief, nostalgia, and a fierce resistance to change. That's when she realized something powerful. She wasn't preserving joy. She was protecting herself from pain. From the fear of forgetting. From the fear of being forgotten. But instead of throwing things out in a frantic purge, Zella Mae took a gentler approach. She began to ask questions. To sit with each item, not as trash, but as a guest from another version of her life. What were you here for? Did you serve me then? Do you serve me now? Do I keep you because I love you, or because I feel bad letting you go? That became her process, one object, one question, one emotion at a time. And here's the truth no one tells you. Letting go is not about being cold. It's about being clear. Clear about what you need now. Clear about who you are becoming. Because when clutter becomes a mirror, you're not just organizing your space. You're learning to see yourself again, without the noise. If you've ever looked around your home and suddenly felt like a stranger in your own story, you're not alone. And you're not broken. You're just ready. Tell us below, what item in your home makes you stop and question who you are now, and who you want to be next? Zella Mae didn't declutter the way most people do. There were no garbage bags lined up. No timer set. No pressure to empty shelves in one weekend. Instead, she poured a cup of chamomile tea, sat down with an old cedar chest, and began a conversation. The first thing she pulled out was a faded teal scarf, frayed at the ends. She held it to her face and smiled. "I wore you to my first concert," she said aloud. The memory of that night, her hands clapping out of rhythm, her heart pounding to the bass, her date awkwardly holding her hand, washed over her like music she hadn't heard in years. But she didn't put the scarf back. And she didn't throw it out. She cut a small square from the corner. Placed it in a glass memory jar. Labeled it, "The Night I Learned Joy Could Be Loud." She didn't need to keep the whole thing to honor the whole moment. From then on, each object became a gentle exchange, like sitting across the table from an old friend and asking, "Why did I hold on to you so long? And more importantly, how can I carry you forward in a way that lifts me, not weighs me down?" She turned a tin of mismatched buttons into framed wall art, arranged by color and memory. Each button, a person or place. Her mother's coat. Her son's first overalls. A navy one from a dress she wore when she got promoted. She found a cracked vase, too broken to hold water, but perfect for holding birdseed outside her window. Every morning, finches danced around it like her clutter had finally found its own purpose. Her favorite transformation? A dusty folder of recipe cards, many handwritten by women who were no longer here. She had them scanned and printed into a family cookbook. She gave a copy to each of her grandchildren. It wasn't just decluttering. It was legacy building. It was healing. And here's the shift she felt. She no longer asked, "What should I get rid of?" She asked, "What deserves to be seen in a new light?" That one change, how she talked to her things, transformed her space, her spirit, and her sense of peace. So here's a thought for you. Instead of asking what to toss, try this. Pick up one object and ask it what memory it holds. Then find a small, creative way to celebrate it without letting it control your space. Have you ever repurposed something sentimental in a way that gave it new life? Share it below. Your idea might spark someone else's joy. Zella Mae didn't mean to start a movement. She simply chose to see her home differently, to speak to her things, to honor them without letting them own her. But sometimes, one quiet decision sends ripples you never see coming. It started with her neighbor, Alma, 83. She came over one afternoon to return a pie dish and stopped dead in her tracks when she saw Zella Mae's hallway. There, hanging on the wall, were frames made from old buttons, notes, scraps of fabric, even broken jewelry, all telling stories that once lived in drawers. Alma whispered, "Zella, it looks like your life is on display. And it's beautiful." That evening, Alma went home and pulled out a dusty tin of postcards from her late husband. She arranged them on a corkboard, added a ribbon, and put it beside her window. It became her favorite corner in the house. Then came Marvin, a widower with a closet full of baseball programs and not a single place to put them. And Nora, who kept a collection of aprons from every decade she'd lived through, but hadn't cooked in years. Zella Mae invited them over. There were no rules. No instructions. Just coffee, scissors, music from the 50s, and a table full of junk waiting to become joy. They called it Revival Hour. Every Tuesday afternoon. One brought lace. One brought postcards. One brought a shoebox of piano sheet music and a laugh that hadn't been heard since her husband passed. Together, they didn't just sort through things. They reimagined themselves. A torn curtain became a journal cover. An old church program became a bookmark for a favorite psalm. A pile of costume jewelry was transformed into a collage that now hangs in their local senior center, titled, The Lives We Still Live. Zella Mae had no idea that her small acts of creative courage would awaken something in others. But that's what happens when someone goes first. When someone says, it's okay to remember, but it's even better to remember out loud. Clutter became conversation. Memories became movement. Isolation turned into inspiration. That's the secret no one tells you. Sometimes, when you free yourself, others find their freedom too. So here's a question. If you could host your own revival hour, what forgotten treasures would you bring to the table? Leave a comment, your ripple could begin right now. The seasons turned. The sun shifted through the curtains a little differently. And one quiet morning, Zella Mae stood in her living room with a cup of tea, looking around in silence, not for what was gone, but for what had come alive. Her home hadn't been emptied. It had been translated. The shoeboxes were no longer stacked in shadows. They had become open memory stations, little corners of celebration instead of secret shame. A set of old scarves was now sewn into a wall hanging over her reading chair, catching the light like stained glass when the afternoon sun peeked through. Where dusty silence once lingered, laughter had started to echo again. Not because her house was full of people, but because it was full of meaning. The guilt she used to feel while walking past a pile of untouched things was replaced with quiet pride. She didn't throw away her past, she made peace with it. And more than that, she invited it to support her present. In the kitchen, recipes once buried in a drawer were displayed on a rotating stand, reminding her to cook just for herself now and then, just for the joy of it. In her bedroom, a strand of costume pearls from her 40th birthday dangled from a lamp switch, a quiet reminder of a woman who once danced till 3 a.m. and might just do it again. Everything still there had earned its place. And the energy had changed. Before, the clutter spoke in a language of what if and just in case. Now, her home whispered, you are safe here. You are seen. And you are still becoming. There was space, not the kind you measure in square feet, but the kind that lets your shoulders drop when you walk in the door. It was space to breathe. To move. To create. Zella Mae once feared that letting go meant disappearing. But the opposite happened. The more she gave herself permission to keep only what mattered, the more she began to matter to herself. And that's the secret so many seniors don't hear enough. You don't need to live in a blank slate to feel free. You just need to surround yourself with what reflects who you truly are, today. So ask yourself this. If your home could speak, what would it say about your life right now? And what small shift could help it speak your true language? Let us know in the comments. Your answer might unlock something beautiful for someone else. This isn't a video about minimalism. It's not about how to fold your towels in thirds or label your spice rack. And it's definitely not about throwing your memories into trash bags. This is a love letter. To you. To your story. To every object in your home that once had a heartbeat behind it. Because let's be honest, what fills our shelves, closets, and drawers isn't always junk. Sometimes it's a birthday card from someone who's gone. A dress that hasn't fit in years, but holds the laughter of a night that changed everything. Or a faded handwritten note that still smells faintly of rosewater and sunshine. This isn't clutter. It's evidence that you lived. But here's the truth that Zella Mae discovered, and one that many of us forget. You don't have to part with your past. You just have to give it somewhere new to live. When she turned buttons into art, recipes into cookbooks, and scarves into story quilts, she wasn't erasing her life. She was renewing it, reclaiming it, and reshaping it into something that would serve her now, not just echo who she was then. And you can do the same. Your home doesn't need to be a showroom. It just needs to feel like you, not the version everyone else remembers, but the one who still dreams, still laughs, still matters. Because aging isn't about fading. It's about refining. And your surroundings should rise to meet who you've become, not anchor you to who you used to be. So here's your gentle invitation. Look around your space. Find that one object that's been tucked away, waiting for permission to shine again. Then ask yourself, what joy is trapped inside this, and how can I set it free? It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be personal. A coaster turned into a photo frame. A shirt turned into a tote. A box of letters turned into a bedtime ritual. And now, tell us below. If you could turn one item into joy, what would it be? Let's inspire each other. Because your idea might help someone else find peace, purpose, or the courage to begin. If something in this story made your chest tighten, if you caught yourself looking over at that old chair, that dusty box, that drawer you haven't opened in years, then maybe, just maybe, you're standing at the edge of your next beginning. You're not too late. You're not too far gone. And you're certainly not alone. Because what you've been holding on to, whether it's physical or emotional, isn't a burden. It's a clue. A signal that your story still wants to be heard, honored, and celebrated. So if your heart stirred at any point in this journey, if you started seeing possibilities where there used to be piles, then do this. Hit the like button. Not just for the video, but for yourself. For the courage it takes to see your home, your past, and your life through a new lens. And if you know someone, an old friend, a sibling, a neighbor, who's been quietly carrying more than just boxes, send this their way. It might be the nudge they didn't know they needed. And don't forget to subscribe. Because around here, we don't believe in the end. Only new chapters waiting to be written, with wisdom, with joy, and with you at the center.